We are living in the golden age of
I
surveillance.
would just recommend using a normal shielded Zcash wallet on your phone.
Hello, Zancas. Thank you for joining the Zeka podcast. It's being recorded on Free to Z. Just so that
Yay!
people who are doing podcasts, if you want to avoid shady Zoom links with strange permissions, just go to freetoz.com and it works much better. Hi, Zancas.
Hello.
Could you give us a description of what you do within the Zcash community?
I am a longtime Zcasher, and I work as the sort of the community coordinator for the Zingo Labs groups, or some of the Zingo Labs groups, to um, facilitate connections between groups. I write a little code here and there, and that's mainly what Zingo Labs is up to, is development. So, sort of engineering manager slash outreach slash developer.
Cool.
I'm there.
And so there's Zingo Labs, and I'm sure most people are going to be familiar with Zingo Wallet. And what distinguishes Zingo Wallet, would you say, in comparison to something like Y Wallet or Zashi? What's different about Zingo?
So the Zingo app, which is on the verge of a major upgrade to Zingo 2, is distinct from the other Zcash apps in the ecosystem in a few ways. One of the ways is that it is a React Native app, and that means that the front end stack for development is more accessible to a wider audience. And since all of our code is open source, one thing we are hoping to do is leverage that that technology stack to make it easier for a wider audience to write Zingo-like apps. So one thing that distinguishes Zingo is that it's a proof of concept in the React Native technology stack. Another thing is that we've been working with the blockchain commons folks to develop the ZWIF wallet import export technology so that different Zcash apps can easily interoperate. And so the Zingo idea, which we've more or less adopted from the blockchain commons folks, is instead of having one app to rule them all, we'll have a wide array of different Zcash apps that interoperate very efficiently and very effectively and understand each other's data. And then different apps can specialize in different niches within the ecosystem and continue to push out and explore new innovations in the vast space of possibility that Zcash opens.
So ZWIF it's like a wallet format. It's a format that any Zcash wallet or app can use.
It's an interchange format. So what happens when you use the ZWIF format is it wraps wallet data in a standard way such that anything that understands that format can easily interpret the data. And so what this permits is things like transferring data from Zingo to Zashi or vice versa really painlessly. So I like to imagine, you have your graphene or lineage auth phone, and it's using F-Droid as the package manager, and you've installed a bunch of Zcash apps, including Zingo and Zashi, and they're side by side. And then for the use case of maybe storing more value, you might want to use the vaults features of Zashi. And then if you're interested in the possibility of user-owned messaging, which is the next feature set that we're looking into for Zingo. Then you might transfer a small amount of funds and maybe relevant data between Zashi and Zingo, and then use Zingo as your messaging app. So we're sort of envisioning a future where like maybe Zingo has replaced your Signal and Zashi has replaced your bank app.
Yes, I'm going to get into Chasqui in a second. But for the moment, maybe some background. Where did the Zingo project come from? Where did it originate?
The earliest glimmer of Zingo was Zcon Zero demo WASM that Strahd created as an example of a lightweight, a light wallet. I guess that was it's a long time ago. And once, something like that. Yeah, I think so. And once that kind of framework, or once the raw proof of concept is there, a developer from the ecosystem picked it up and built a React Native interface on top. And that was the original Zec wallet, which was the kind of the most popular, most common light wallet that existed in the Zcash ecosystem in that era. 20, well, up to network upgrade 5.
Okay,
So,
right. From that point, yeah. So that's where Zingo comes from. Yeah, it'd be pretty interesting to get into where it's going. Its list of features is kind of interesting. So there's the financial insights. There's like really detailed information about your payments from using Zingo. It lists like percentages of which addresses you've sent money to. I haven't seen that in any other wallet, even outside of Zcash. It's quite interesting. Yeah, in terms of the Zingo feature set, at the moment, there's some pretty cool messaging. So you can send encrypted memos with your Zcash transactions. But in Zingo, I noticed that you receive these memos much faster. So let's say, I think it's like, we could use Zashi as an example. When you're receiving the memo, I don't know if it shows instantly. So how does that work? What's happening?
Yeah, so Zingo pays attention to the contents of the mempool, and as soon as it notices something that is for this user's wallet, it displays the information. So you get the memo as soon as it is in the mempool. Of course, it's not confirmed yet, so it is sort of aptly. It can aptly be thought of as gossip at that point because there is no consensus from the validation nodes. I guess they're going to be called finalizers soon. That message is part of a valid transaction.
Right. Cool.
So you have so it's a little bit more proactive. Yeah.
Okay, right. And so is this the form that Chasqui, so this is the next evolution of Zingo, I think. Is that how Chasqui is going to kind of detect messages for people?
We certainly are going to experiment with the proof of concept. We already have one that we've been farming around with some internal beta testers that will offer that kind of rapid messaging feature, and it will be based on memos in the current Zcash blockchain. I'm not sure further out what the messaging protocol we're actually going to use is going to look like. There's talk of altering the anonymous broadcast channel in the Sean Bo's Tachyon project. So I don't know what the future of anonymously broadcast memos is. I don't know if there's going to be separation of concerns, different channels. So I'm not sure about that that level of detail yet because I think no one is. But we are going to proceed with a proof of concept that will offer, in Zcash, uh, the maximal leverage of the current version, and probably more specifically the network upgrade 7 version of the memo feature
Yes.
um, that gives people what many Zcash users have been asking for, which is to just use Zcash as their messaging app.
Right. And it does bring up some questions like, do you want your messages to be permanently on chain forever? Some people may choose not. I'm really fascinated with what. So before this meeting, I went onto the forum and I kind of read through one of the forum posts on Chasqui, and you called it Zcash driven messaging (ZDM). And yeah, I'm really interested in this. Like, we think about Zcash, the Zec economy. How are people earning on the chain? So we're not a smart contract platform yet, and so like we can't do DeFi things natively. I guess soon they'll be staking and earning yield, but for the moment, I think there is potential. So ZecHub has this thing called the shielded newsletter, and it allows people to enter their shielded address into the site, and they send like a microtransaction. We receive their address and add it to a list, and we like from that list. There's nothing we can tell about the people who have signed up, and we send out a newsletter which contains network stats and ecosystem updates to people's Zcash wallets. So our implementation is like really boring. No one wants to receive like network stats. Like I don't think many people are going to want that kind of um, communication every week. Like it's not too interesting. You could just go on to our Substack or something. But I do think people within the community could create their own private newsletters and share things with their own groups. Like the ZCub thing is very Zcash centric, and this kind of private newsletter model could be used for traders or, who knows. I just had to share that with you because it's Zcash driven messaging. Yeah.
No,
Any thoughts?
that's really cool. And maybe we should talk about integrating that into Zingo so that there's a um, intuitive uh, interface that leverages that proof of concept newsletter. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the Zcash driven messaging thing. I'm really pleased to be using Free to Z for this call. And one sort of nearer term move that we've been thinking about for the messaging. So the bulk of user facing um, network activity is some kind of social communication. Um, People aren't spending a significant fraction of their time doing formal financial transactions. They're spending most of their time sending pictures of their cats to their, spouses. And that is the bulk of the activity, and that's been effectively captured and represented as economic activity by centralized players who have the capability of doing that. So what that means is the largest market, um, depending on how you partition the economy, is probably this kind of human centric connectivity online. And right now, it's, I think, fair to say that it's almost all monetized by or all valued via surveillance machines or surveillance mechanisms. So
I think you called them parasites.
yeah, and so that's actually a really fantastic opportunity, I think, because I think there is a lot of organic demand for a different model where people understand that their connections are really authentically between the participants that they believe they are between.
Right.
Um, and so if we have a slightly cleaner interface, we have a nice address book, we have a proper representation of gossiped messages in memos in the mempool. We have a few tweaks don't that are easily achievable from the current state of the Zcash ecosystem. Then, if we could offer the wider human community, if we could offer people a way to very easily transition from their surveillance WhatsApp to a privacy respecting app, um, that seems to have a large potential to me. So,
Yeah. I recently spoke with someone from Simple X. I think he was like an engineer on Simple X. Um, and in our discussion, he said like payments in messaging apps is very difficult. Uh, like there are not many examples of or good examples, I should say. So there's Signal and there's Mobile Coin, but like it's not available in a number of countries, and even still, its usage it's not being used as much as it should. Um, and yeah, I asked him why is this. One of the answers he gave is that if you include payments in a messaging app, like is there some kind of regulatory concern about becoming like a money transmitter or something like this? Um, I like gave him. I asked him how difficult would it be to get Zcash on Simple X, and he said like near impossible. Um, he gave a suggestion, and that would be for Zcash wallets to communicate securely on device with Simple X or a different app. Um, so yeah, what would you think on his points?
yeah, so I've been thinking about this a bit. There's two things that come to mind. One is that there's already a system that exists that can, crudely transfer between Zcash apps, and that's Brave, right? So you can have your Brave wallet, and you can have your different web apps like near intents, and you can, with some amount, you can express um, intentions between those apps to fulfill different goals, like perhaps um, ideally at some point paying for messaging. Um, but separately, the architecture you just proposed, where you have um, one app whose job it is um, to handle private payments and the current state of the Zcash blockchain, and another app whose job it is to maintain secure connections between people for communication.
Right.
What if those apps could interoperate with like maybe a ZWIF format, something like that, so that they can easily understand each other, and then you can have kind of the proper separation of concern um, there. I don't I don't see how it's a little bit tricky to think through, or thorny to think through the problem of how does the whole stack of services you need to have like the kind of conversation we're having right now, how does that get um, represented in a way that can be paid for, represented in a way that can then be sort of quantified and therefore paid for with a private payment system? Um, ideally we'd like to sort of like close that loop, right? Where the servers running SimpleX are receiving, or the server operators that are supporting SimpleX are receiving compensation in proportion to the effort that they've gone to support the messaging system. So I feel like there's a lot of work there. Um, but I don't feel, it doesn't seem to be, I don't think there's much new theory that needs to be discovered. I think it's engineering work
Yep.
that with sufficient um, focus could be done. And so to me, that wraps the problem around to this sort of economics angle. Like, what if there really is this huge potential, if there's like a latent enormous demand that seems like sort of needs to be like activated by attracting the attention of people who are currently using WhatsApp and or WeChat and have no idea that there's an alternative.
Yeah.
If they could be sort of stimulated or catalyzed to to um, start using this alternative system, that would be the fuel, the engine that we would need, I think, that would then push through or fund all of the relatively easy engineering efforts.
Right. There's this I don't know where it comes from. Maybe it was Steve Jobs or something. But like if you want to replace something, the thing you're building needs to be like 5 times better. Um I've heard that somewhere. I don't know if it's true. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned infrastructure and incentives. We can get to that in a second. For the moment, I'm thinking it might be good to, like, with the recent news of I think banks in the US now can custody crypto, and we're seeing like a lot of this Bitcoin reserves. Many states, I guess, are starting to save Bitcoin. Um, we're seeing a lot of good regulation for the space, and because of that, there's large corporations like Meta who are now jumping into crypto. I think just in the last couple of days, we've seen like Meta announcing they're looking to create a stable coin. And so Meta already has all of these users on WhatsApp and Instagram and wherever, and Facebook. And so like there is a huge threat, I think, where these the super corporations are now going to also have access to people's payments where they only had access to their messages. And so it's like how do not just Zcash or Zingo, but how does like genuine crypto uh, defend or at least survive in that kind of atmosphere? I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I can appreciate that analysis, and I usually get my news by talking to other Zcashers, so I just learned a lot about what's going on. I was like, oh, that's why the price is shifting. Or maybe that's why the price is shifting. There's some kind of news happening. Um, cool. Well, I don't think people. Um, I think people really care about sending each other messages. That's what they care about. And if you say here, so we have a project called Springboard, which is our investment, I guess, in the encapsulated URI, the called liberated payments technology. And what we think is that the killer combination is that you can empower someone to use Zcash to privately message without ever even maybe understanding that the Zcash is in the mix.
Yes.
So what we want to do is enable people who are in the know. That's the current Zcashers to bring in other people, nascent Zcashers. Those are the two kinds of people that exist, and do so in a way that it's not evangelism. It's not. There's not really an argument to make because you're not trying to sell Zcash per se. You're just walking up to a person on the street and you're like, hey, we like each other, we're chatting, blah, blah, blah. I would like to message with you. And
Right.
here's the way I do it. And it's a one-step process. And you say, here you go. And then now you and I have this connection for private messaging. And that I think that primitive is sort of it's a fundamental primitive that I think can sort of, I mean, you might have to talk about privacy. There might be
Yeah.
no other way around it at some
Yeah.
point. You might have to say why it's your preference to the person on the street. But at the end of the day, to compete with, or as you say, to replace the current messaging um, stack, especially with these network effects and network social graphs, you have to convince somebody to change. You have to convince them to opt in. And so I guess what I'm sort of backtracking on what I just said, but I think what we want to say, or I think what we can say with liberated payments opt-in to messaging, not an opt-in to Zcash, right? So that's the difference, right? So it's an opt-in to messaging, and what you're saying is, I'm offering you this thing so that you can be authentically connected to me,
Right.
and maybe in that moment you say, like, my privacy or my autonomy is inextricably, if I want to be connected to you, linked to our privacy and our autonomy. So what I'm offering you here is that it's a for us to have our autonomous private connection. And yeah, under the hood there's Zcash, but
Yeah.
this is a way for us to connect.
I'm a fan of models where people don't necessarily know that there's Zcash happening. um, I think there was the um, Brave memo. What's it called? MMP, Media Memos Protocol, and
Hmm.
this will allow Brave users to have some kind of private Dropbox. And so this, I think, is going to use Zcash protocol, the memo bundles underneath everything, and it's very possible that all these millions of Brave users suddenly have a private Dropbox, and they can use it just like normally, and they don't necessarily need to know that there's Zcash happening. Um, I like things like that because there are many people who are afraid of crypto, and so like even with this Chasqui thing, I wonder if um, like having minimal crypto-ness is the right approach. So I think it's a good time to shift over to other stuff Zingo does. What is Z3? So there's Zcash D, which is the full node, has been the full node for many years, and that's going away. And there's this new thing called Z3. So would you mind explaining for everyone what it
Yeah,
is?
so there's three components to Z3. So the original Zcash D came with, so you had the full node, so-called full node. You had the consensus validator, the miner, and you had a wallet, and those were integrated together in Zcash D, more or less. Um, and then once light clients, um, once the Zcash light client requirements, um, in particular the anonymous broadcast channel, became apparent, then the Light Wallet D separate Go application was created to support providing light clients with um,
Compact
more
blocks?
information. Yeah, and Compact Box in particular, which contained the minimal information that you needed in order to know that some transaction was for you. Because when you have no other information about which transactions are relevant, you need to get all of them and check all of them. So you need the most efficient data structure for that. So you had that sort of historical separation of concern. In the modern era, we have Zebra for uh, running the consensus algorithm and building a blockchain. And then you have Zale, which is a full node wallet that is designed to replace all of the functionality that the historical full node wallet from Zcash um, had. So it's your key escrow, etc. And then what's left over is the functionality that was previously required by other participants in the ecosystem, like light clients and block explorers. So light clients and block explorers needed compact blocks and other information to operate efficiently. So Zaino is the Zingo Labs implementation of that functionality, and it's designed to either run as a standalone Zaino D node that is more or less sufficient as a drop-in replacement for the historical Light Wallet D, or you can access that extended API that's the necessary set of functionality for a light client through Zaino,
Hmm.
the
You
library.
said a necessary set of APIs. Um, I recall many months ago, Strad mentioned that the Zcash D wallet was like one of the most feature rich in the entire crypto ecosystem. Um, and so with Zaino and Zebra and Zale, uh, like comparing to Zcash D, are we gaining functionality or is it being reduced, kind of narrowed down and
Yeah,
focused?
it should be a fairly significant reduction in functionality based solely on known demands from the ecosystem. So we're not replicating all of the historical functionality as Zcash. The Z3 project is a much reduced surface, which has, you know, if there were someone in the out there who is using some feature that we just none of us know about it, then they're going to discover that Z3 does not support that. But that
Right.
is the trade-off. That's the cost. Where the benefit is to focus on the functionality that we need, that we know that is needed, and ensure that it is high quality and secure and well implemented.
Yeah, it kind of brings to mind the. I don't know if you've seen like the SpaceX. Um, I think it's their rocket engine, um, and
The
the different.
Falcon.
No, not the Falcon. The engine itself. I think it's called Raptor, and there's like different iterations over time, and it just becomes more simple. Um, over time, like yeah, that was a thought. So yeah, I am curious about your work with NIM. So I do know that there is a plan to integrate like network layer privacy. Was it into Zaino, into the
Yeah,
index?
there should be. We have plans to extend the API with NIM specific functionality so that you can tunnel your information over the mixnet. However, that our initial architecture was before the Z3 era. We were looking at it a long time ago, and NIM's SDKs have improved significantly since then. So Zyno's in the right spot to offer that interface, and that is still our intention. But the details have slipped. So we will be looking into how we're going to implement that probably in the next fairly soon. The lead of the Zaino project is very excited about that. I would say that's among their highest priorities. So I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that you'll hear more about NIM and Zaino probably by the end of the summer.
Nice.
Something else I wanted to say about NIM. There is some work that NIM did for a ZCG grant, and at some point that got stalled out. Some part of the process of them getting their Zcash for whatever they did, and the the most familiar with the NIM project in Zingo has been kind of waiting on that whole funding issue to resolve before continuing to talk to them, because they've done some work and are waiting to hear back from us. So
Cool.
us, the Zcash community.
Yep. With Zaino, I heard, I'm not sure if it's true. So currently, if you want to build something on Zcash, some kind of service, you'll need a full node, kinda, I think. To access like the full node APIs, you need to have it present locally. Like it's not a good idea to access a full node if it's not on your local network. So I hear. Does Z3 resolve this in some way?
So we did some work to separate the blockchain state, the Zebra state, from a front end, sort of, so you could have a light wallet running, or a light wallet D style service running on a separate set of hardware from the Zebra, which has the full chain cached. And that could be useful in some circumstances. I have concerns about exposing information to the network layer unnecessarily. So we're not going to support that in the initial version of Zaino. So that will require, so if you want to run like a Zaino D as a replacement for a light wallet D, last I checked last week, I think it is the case that you need on the same hardware, on the same node, a full Zebra or Zcash D instance with a consensed blockchain that's synced to the tip.
Yeah, I think
I prefer that. I think when I look through the cost benefits, I think that's a fine trade off. And at some point, if you want to do some kind of multiplexing or load balancing where you have one Zebra servicing many Zaino Ds, I think that's work that's fairly easy to do later on. It's not something that it's not necessary for V0, and in fact, I don't like some of the privacy or security trade-offs. It increases the attack surface, so to separate those across nodes.
I see. Yeah, although when you look at Ethereum, a number of people are using like public RPCs for everything, for what they do, and yeah, it's an attack vector. Let's get some more questions for you. Developers interested in joining the Zcash ecosystem, where's a good place to start?
Yeah, reach out to us. We'll figure out something. Zec Hub and Zingo Labs. I think we're about to do a thing where we integrate the newsletter that Zec Hub has produced into Zingo. We've got ideas, and
Cool.
yeah.
That'd be nice. In fact, okay, so like you could probably build it way better than what I'm thinking. but a way for people in, like, they can open their Zingo wallet and they can let people subscribe to their posts in some way. I think, yeah, Z send many. I hope it stays.
Okay.
Yeah, super. And also, I was going to ask about auto shielding.
We
Very
had
quickly.
auto
Yeah.
shielding.
Yeah. What happened?
We had it, and Josh Swihart did not like it. This is years ago, and I, in particular, he didn't like the involuntary or implicit leak of amount data or of amounts, right? So if you have auto shielding and it just takes your transparent and shoves it in that era back into the sapling pool,
Yeah.
then um, um, there's some information leak that happens implicitly. And so
Right.
we said, okay, fine. We'll just we do, I think it's a great principle to make sure that the user is consenting to everything that's being done. So yeah, we just have a manual like shield my funds. I have funds to shield.
Yeah.
Here's a big button. Uh, you should maybe think about shielding that, and that puts the power in the user's hands. But there's a lot of demand for auto shielding now. Is that why you
Well,
asked?
I don't know. I think Cake Wallet has said that when they do add Zcash, it will be auto shielding. I think there's
How long ago did they first announce that they were adding Zcash?
maybe a couple of months ago.
There was a mention,
Yeah.
yeah, on Twitter that it was like a priority, right? On
Yeah.
Shitter. But I don't know if that's the first time there's been a conversation between like Cake Wallet and
Yeah. No.
the
Yeah.
Zcash community, and
Yeah.
so I'm not given the. I think it's worthwhile to look back through the announcements and see if there's a fulfillment, if there's follow through.
Um.
Maybe we should add Monero to Zingo.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. I'm very much in favor of multi-asset wallets. It'd be great if at least Ethereum and Solana were there, so that the users who do use those chains can also hold Zec. That'd be great. And also, if it was multi-asset, maybe there could be some like native in-app interactions with near intents and
Yeah,
soon Zavax or
yeah.
Redbridge. Yeah.
Then Maya too, right?
And
Is that
Maya.
is
Is
yeah?
Maya being added to Zingo?
Not this week.
Okay. I can wait. Yeah, that kind of covered most of the questions. Are there any questions you have for me?
Um, yeah. How'd you get involved in Zcash? What's your story? What's your
Um, I
uh, Should I call you by this screen name or
sure, Scribbles or Squirrel or yeah, Squizzer.
okay,
I don't mind.
okay, cool.
Yeah, I knew someone a long time ago. I think it was 20. It was before Zcash launched. I knew someone, and we shared a music taste. And that person later got involved in Zcash and started making videos and like sharing what they were interested in, and it got me interested in Zcash as well. And I read a post from Ian Myers called "Satoshi Has No Clothes," and he basically showed all the possible attacks against transparent coins. And at one stage, I noticed there was like some dust in, like I had some kind of custodied crypto wallet, and I noticed, like after reading, it was a strange turn of events. After reading Ian Myers' post, I noticed that maybe this is a potential attack against my my finances. And so yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Did you backtrack it? Did you see where it came from?
I
Like, was
did. I
it?
pulled it up in an Explorer and I went back and it looked weird. Like there was what I presume is could have been like tracing with dust and all the multi-sig accounts on that custodian. That's what they were doing, I think. So I never used them again. Custody your own funds on Zingo.
You said it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me for a discussion, Zancas.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. I think your newsletter and private news groups are really interesting. We should talk more.
Yes, will do. Thank you.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.